Well, I actually thought this story would be forgotten by now, but it's not, it would seem. I'm sure all of you know about the 2,500 UEFA VIPs they demand to let over here with no quarantines or restrictions, under the threat of taking the Euro finals to Hungary next month. Personally, I wouldn't mind if they took it to Hungary simply so I could see any of these knee-bending cucks get booed by the 60,000 supporters that would be there. Let's see UEFA or any of these lot run around telling people not to boo these knee-bending cucks if they do that shit there. It ain't gonna work, let me tell you that. But it seems more and more people are seeing the fact that Boris Johnson is going to let these 2,000 VIPs come over here, and they're sitting there now thinking, hold on a moment, they're just taking the piss out of us. We can't do this and we can't do that in our own country or even go on holiday hassle-free, but VIPs can travel over here, skip it all for a couple of football matches. Obviously, we have known this for a while, but the Sheeple are only just seeing it for the first time, especially in large numbers, which is what we actually need. All of this comes after the G7 and Ascot VIP hypocrisy that has them all singing and dancing with no masks on, social distancing or none of that, which to be honest I actually love to see. For one, I want people to be enjoying their life and showing human faces around other people, but also because it shows the Sheeple doing as they're told just how much the so-called elites are taking the piss out of them. Obviously, I want people to be free to do as they want to do, and I want those who can't see for themselves to wake the fuck up and smell the bullshit they have been belt-fed like a dick to keep them in line. Now we can also never forget the G7 hypocrisy, which really got the ball rolling on even media shitweasels talking about the fact it's rules for thee but not for me. That barbecue the other day and walks on the beach really showed a lot of people just how much they'd been taken for a ride. Shit, Boris Johnson even had the audacity to delay reopening while he enjoys maskless barbecues and walks on the beach. As I'm sure you know, this whole week has been an optic spell for Boris Johnson and of course many other wankerati tosspots who promote the government's bullshit restrictions on a daily basis. Because at the end of the day, they've all been pictured maskless at the football, Ascot and many other places, which the media are also calling them out on now. Well, some of them at least. The BBC, not so much, but obviously that will shock few of you. For instance, Neil Oliver pointed this out for GB News in this little clip that we have here.
One of the words I want to talk about tonight is hypocrisy. But in amongst it all were photos on social media of politicians and other celebs, other famous types. They seem to be living the VIP life. Michael Gove and Matt Hancock in what appeared to be the VIP area at Wembley, maskless and happy. I won't name them because I don't think it's fair, but various celebs arm in arm with celeb pals, maskless and happy. Now, I'm all for being together, maskless and happy. It's actually what I live for at the moment, is the simple prospect that someday we'll all be maskless and happy. But this is at a time when there's still politicians and celebs taking every chance they can get to bang on about the rest of us still having to wear masks and observe social distancing rules, regulations and restrictions that change and modify and shiver in front of our eyes all the time. Now there's talk of dropping quarantine for 2,500 so-called VIPs from UEFA. They say that if they can't dodge quarantine to watch the final in Wembley, they'll take the match somewhere else where the rules are less stringent. Rules for us and different rules or no rules for them. Do they think our heads button up the back? The G7 get-together was another slap in the masked-up face for most. No holidays for the proles, but private jets here, there and everywhere for them. And barbecues and walks on the beach. Why, I ask, why are they doing this? Why are they seen to be doing this? Is it actually to rub our noses in the fact that it really is one law for them and other rules for us? Why else would you pontificate 1 minute about the need to continue to obey the rules for another month and then in the next breath have your picture taken arm in arm with your political or showbiz pal on the beach or at the football?
Now I have to say, I find myself agreeing with a lot of what he said in that clip there. It's also good for GB News to talk about it just because that might spur others into talking about it and waking a few sheeple up. GB News obviously won't drop bombshell information due to being Ofcom regulated, but waking even a few of these up with little bits that they do give out is better than nothing considering the shit state that this country is in. The same is true of LBC here, who of all people actually said something against the narrative by also pointing out the hypocrisy shown and the terrible optics that are coming from this. Here, you know what, take a quick listen to that.
It's great for the country, after such a horrible year we've had, to have sports return to the UK in this way. That leaves two options. Either you make this exemption for the VIPs, in other words, you reinforce the idea that we're becoming an apartheid by class society, with Ascot, the Grand Prix, Wembley finals, all exceptions made, the G7 and the garden barbecue, all exceptions made for VIPs only, while the rest of us have to abide by the 30-person rule, apartheid by class. Either you do that, or you realise that you've extended lockdown based on dodgy, out-of-date data, and you recognise it's time to end all of these restrictions once and for all permanently and never return to them again. Like New York has now done, like LA has now done. And I said Texas and Florida were already doing it. But of course, if you're on the left or liberal end of this debate and were supporting lockdowns, you prefer the fact that New York and LA have now done it because they're in your political camp. If that's what it takes to convince you, fine. But they've done it with only 70% vaccinations. We've got 86% immunity in this country through vaccinations and natural antibodies. Why can't we lift these restrictions? What's going on? It's time to end this all now, finally, once and for all. The alternative is to reinforce this apartheid by class society and continue making exemptions only for VIPs. See how that plays out for you. Is that the kind of society you want to end up in? Is that what we want to see in terms of optics? People at Ascot with their beautiful hats on. No social distancing, no masks, more than 30 out in public. An average struggling Joe Bloggs who's at risk of losing his jobs and income because of lockdown can't even attend their family wedding.
So in that there you hear him talk about Grand Prix VIP exceptions, which I didn't even know about before now, but once again shows just how much they're taking the piss out of us. All these VIP exceptions should be telling people that we ain't in this shit together and literally never was. The rich have been jet-setting around the world since day one while you're told to be a good little sheeple. I should say though, it's good to see the media are actually picking up on this, but we all know they could do so much more, and say shit I'm not even allowed to say on YouTube at this point. Obviously they won't, but let's be honest, they could. As you know, they're as corrupt as our political class, and certainly not to be trusted in the slightest if you ask me. But then again, I don't need to tell you lot that, because you ain't fucking stupid, are ya? Now, before I go, guys, remember to check out my new website, which is linked down below, along with my BitChute and Odyssey channels. They're there in case YouTube shit cans me into the wrong thing gulag, which is always possible these days.